welcome. We're here with Basketball Victoria Referee Development Officer Billy Mildenhall to have a chat about a few things. Thanks for joining me, Billy.
No problems.
We're heading into round 3 of Big V specifically, and bystanders and coaches and everyone involved with the league would have noticed a few changes over the first few rounds of the season in terms of officiating and the way the game's being called. This is on the back of the referee directions for 2014 points of emphasis, and if you could just outline, what did you identify as being a reason as to why you guys have brought this in now?
Okay, I guess to go back a step, each year we sort of try to identify from the previous season areas that maybe we need to focus on for refereeing, and that's certainly not unique in this country. It happens all around the world. They all have points of emphasis, call them different terminologies, directions or whatever. So this year we decided as a group of that the area that we would be really focusing on would be giving referees some clear directions in terms of what sort of, in lots of ways, what contact and non-contact that they would allow.
Yep.
And this was based on the global introduction of the points of emphasis, basically, where they were all focusing on exactly the same things. So my involvement with FIBA gives me sort of access to lots of information with regards to what happens in EuroLeague, what happens in the Americas competitions and so on, and their training tapes have exactly focused on the same areas that we're focusing on.
Sure.
So we adopted to follow that sort of approach, and in general terms it basically meant we wanted the referees to tighten up in their calling of the game.
Okay, so what you outline what actually is the change, or what I know you're talking about contact. Is there anything particularly that you guys have identified as being something that you need to clean up?
Yeah, pretty much it was across the board. It's all over the floor, but it's mainly to do with manhandling the ball carriers or the ball handler.
Yep.
And protecting the shooters. So, I mean, there's a conscious effort, and this was introduced in the NBL and WNBL. There's a conscious effort to try to make the game more spectacular, if you like, and more of a spectacle that people would like to come back and watch. And as a result, it has created higher scoring, and which the administrators all believe is a positive. And so the emphasis was on the referees to police contact much more tightly than they ever have previously.
Sure. So this isn't just the Big V that this is being rolled out to in this winter season. We're talking Big V, VJBL, Siebel, go as far as each local association?
Absolutely. What happens in this country is that it's very much from the top down driven. Yep. And as a consequence, with the introduction of this sort of style of officiating in the NBL, and then now moving on to our winter competitions with Siebel, as you've pointed out, with Siebel and Big V and the VJBL competitions, it has filtered all the way down, and as a result it has impacted even on domestic competition as well.
Okay, so there's 8 basic areas that have been outlined, or key focuses the referees will be paying extra attention to and policing. Could you sort of go through those briefly?
Yeah, I mean, the first one is protecting the ball carrier, and mainly it's to do with and most of the emphasis really is placed on in the back three-quarter court.
Yep.
So that we're focusing on the ball handler being able to bring the ball up the floor without being manhandled or pressured by body-to-body contact or hand contact. And in particular, we're saying that defenders can't put any hands on. And the instructions to the referees is pretty much, if they put a hand on it, that's a foul.
Sure.
And so all of these things are going to take a period of time of adjustment, and that's sort of one of the major areas, the protecting the ball carrier. The other one is protecting the shooter, which has always been prevalent and has always been in place. But we're saying now that we really want to protect the shooter, and if it becomes a 50-50 call, then we want the protection be given to the shooter.
Okay, so 50-50 calls will go the way of the offensive.
Pretty much, and that's particularly with charge blocks in particular, which are by far the most difficult calls to make.
Sure.
And irrespective of what you think, 50% of the people will agree and 50% will disagree. So what we're saying that, okay, if there's an element of doubt in the referee's mind, then we want to protect the shooter, and as a consequence we'll call it as a blocking foul.
Sure.
Now that doesn't mean that every time it's going to be called a block.
Yep.
It just simply means that if it's a 50-50 call, we're giving the direction to say, okay, 50-50 will go towards protecting the offensive player.
So number 4 is flopping. Now this is one that's talked about quite a fair bit. It's become more and more prevalent. You're coming down hard on the floppers.
Yeah, look, it's become
makes it tricky for you guys.
It is. It's very tough, and it makes it very difficult for officials because, and a lot of the times the flopping occurs with charge blocks as well.
Yeah.
So, and players now are getting very good at emphasising the amount of contact that has occurred, and which is making it very difficult for referees to determine whether it needs to be called or not to be called.
Yeah.
We're following the clear directions from EuroLeague in particular, and in the NBA, if you're
That's where flopping was born, wasn't
Absolutely. I mean, the NBA, the only difference is the NBA have taken it away from the referees.
Okay.
Because of their administrative abilities, they're able to observe every game off TV.
And they're most recently finding.
And they find them,
yes.
yeah. And so it's taken the pressure off the referees. Unfortunately, we're not in a position to do that, and as a consequence, we're following the direction of EuroLeague, and they've really clamped down on flopping over the last 3 or 4 seasons. And as a consequence of our last meeting this year in January, they emphasised that flopping wasn't an issue any longer.
Okay.
So, we're hopeful that may occur with us. And generally speaking, it's what it means is both offensively or defensively, players are putting a lot of mayonnaise on the contact that happens,
yep.
and they're making it so difficult for referees. Now we're saying to referees, we want you, at the next opportunity, we want you to give a warning to that player, and also that warning goes to that team.
Yep.
And if it occurs again, there's a technical foul to be assessed.
Okay.
Our experiences have been pretty much after the first warning, for lots of reasons, referees are probably a little reluctant to give the technical foul.
Yep.
But as we learn, as we get more confident in dealing with that area, I'm sure that technical fouls will probably be assessed, and hopefully teams and players will adjust and not flop, basically. The other one is off the ball screening or contact off the ball.
Yep.
Again, there was a lot of bumping. The general perception was there was a lot of contact away from the ball, which was illegal.
Yep.
And all we're just saying to referees is to police that a lot more tightly. So we're not changing that in any way, shape or form.
Sure.
Unsportsmanlike fouls again, and this is a general trend from around the world, and particularly my experiences in international events. Even the 2012 Olympics, where the unsportsmanlike fouls were called much more freely than they do in this country.
Yep.
They encourage the referees to actually upgrade, what they call upgrade. So they say, have a think about it, you call a foul, and then you have a little, a few seconds to think about it. Yep. Then you actually upgrade it to make it an unsportsmanlike foul.
Right. Okay.
And so, and it's still based on the same premises and the principles of an unsportsmanlike foul. It's a heavy foul if it's a foul coming from an unfavourable position. Yep. If it's a breakaway foul.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Sure.
Yeah. So they're still following the same directions.
Yep.
Travel is always, if you look back over historically with points of emphasis, travelling is always an area that is always addressed.
Yep.
The difficulty with travelling is that there's no question that players travel regularly, and the emphasis we place with referees is to say which is the most significant travels. We want to call the ones that have the most impact on the game. Now, unfortunately, what a referee perceives as having impact on the game and a coach has impact on the game sort of can vary considerably. So we try to enforce the referees just to call the most obvious travels. We don't want them to be splitting hairs over travelling.
Okay.
And then the player-coach behaviour, again, has always been a strong emphasis that we want behaviour to be maintained and controlled by the referees, but we would prefer the players and coaches to play within the rules and within the confines of the directions, and so the referees don't actually have to apply any sanctions against officials, against players and coaches.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so they're the eight points they'll be striving to enforce, not just for this year, potentially for further down the track.
Ongoing, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's certainly, and this is one of the things we really wish to focus on. And from our experiences at the NBL and WNBL, every year there have been points of emphasis, and what tends to happen is the referees implement them in the early part of the season, when they're really fresh and ready to go.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden it starts to wane as the year progresses, and also because of the pressures that are being applied to them, say from spectators and coaches and players and whatever, who aren't adjusting as well as you'd like. This year, I think the emphasis has been, and it's been proven, that the referees have maintained the focus for the entire season with the WNBL and the NBL. And as a consequence, we started the first game and it's now sort of coming down to the finals, and hopefully that'll be still implemented within the finals, and that's the direction we're on, and that's what the coaches want. I mean, the bottom line of it, coaches just purely want consistency.
Yep.
And so if we can show that we are being consistent, so we are emphasising to the referees that you're going to be under a lot of pressure because people are reluctant to make change, but we're confident that the end result will be the benefits for all concerned.
Well, Billy, that's great. Thanks very much for having the chance, giving us the chance to come and have a chat with you, and you hopefully can shed some light for everyone involved in not just Big V but basketball right across the state. And hopefully we'll be good to go now, and that'll be maintained for the future.
Exactly. And look, there's lots of independent evidence to indicate that it is successful.
Yep.
That it's not just simply us saying that, it's changing the way. We appreciate it takes time, and there's a lot of time to adjust. But the general consensus, and in particular with the NBL, there was so many positive comments that were in the press about the impact that it was having on the game and making the game a much more better spectacle and something that people will really enjoy.
Well, Billy, thanks very much again, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks.